Welcome to the Midlife Mom Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Lewis. I'm a coach for midlife moms with a background as a mental health therapist. I help midlife moms who are feeling lost and stuck to be able to discover and create their dream midlife. Let's do this. Welcome back to the Midlife Mom Podcast. I'm getting this episode out a little bit late today because my husband and I just spent the weekend with our youngest son. We did a little road trip. He's going back to school in a few weeks, and we just wanted to get in a little trip with him before he leaves. This will probably be, I'm guessing, the last summer that we have the kind of time we had with him, and it's been awesome. So anyway, it's late, the podcast with it coming out, but good reason. Got to spend time with our son, which was really great. So for the past 2 episodes, I've been doing mental wellness toolkits. The first one was on sleep. Last week it was on exercise. And this week it is on food. So you might ask, why are we discussing food as part of mental wellness? In my experience as a mental health therapist, I have noticed that when someone is really struggling with their mental health, their food intake is impacted. Either they are undereating or they're overeating. When they're undereating, I've seen it related to being like low energy. They're in a low energy state, and so they really don't have as much of a desire to eat. This could be the state where someone's in that freeze or shutdown state. And oftentimes I've seen where it's connected with depression in my experience. Now, I do want to note that this is not always the case, that if someone is undereating, that it's due to depression. That is not always the case, but it can be a reason. It's also very important to ensure that there's not another underlying reason for undereating, such as a medical condition. So it's always good to look at that part of it also. I've also seen individuals that maybe are overeating as a way to cope with what I would call painful emotions or uncomfortable emotions, such as boredom, loneliness, discouragement, guilt, shame, or there could be other ones. So what I do is I'm not dictating how much a person should or shouldn't be eating because, I'm not a registered dietitian, but what I can do is encourage clients and women to tune into their bodies and be able to be aware of how certain foods feel in their bodies and certain amounts of foods in their bodies, how it feels. So if, we were to go eat or overeat ice cream afterwards, we're probably not going to feel so great. So that's a good observation of like noticing amounts, types, quantities that feel good in the body and feel like it's serving the body. So many of us are aware that the basic needs of our bodies for the nutrients are going to be related to carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So I want to go into it just briefly to provide understanding of what each of these do and why we need them. Carbohydrates are the body's main energy source, and they also support the brain and functioning. They can help with digestive health, particularly carbohydrates that are high in fiber. So that's good to keep in mind. The carbohydrates are what are going to be the main energy source and help with brain function. So we want our brains to be functioning well to help with ultimate mental wellness. Now, the next thing is fats. Fats can also be an energy source. They also help with absorption and utilization of certain types of vitamins. They aid in the production of hormones, which is very important for us, and also with brain health and other things as well. Protein. Protein aids in muscle growth and repair. Protein is essential in supporting our immune system, bone health, and weight management. Now, as we age, our muscles, it's harder to maintain our muscles. And so protein is really, really important that we get that into our systems. And additional interesting thing that I learned last year is the role that protein plays in serotonin production. Now, serotonin is the chemical produced in our bodies that help with our mood. And I learned about this. There's a book called The Mood Cure, and it's all about getting foods and nutrients that help with our mood. It goes into a lot of details about different things that can be done to help with mood, and it gives assessments. So anyway, it's an interesting book, but that was where I learned about the body and how it uses tryptophan, which comes from meat, eggs, dairy that we eat to help with creating serotonin. So if maybe our mood is being impacted and we're not getting enough protein, it's a good thing to look at and see if that could be one of the reasons why. So again, another benefit of getting our protein in. So being able to make sure we're getting the macronutrients that our body needs are going to really serve us in our mental wellness. And obviously there's also the micronutrients, the vitamins, and minerals, other things like that sometimes our bodies are deficient in, which that's a good thing to work with a healthcare provider if there are deficiencies with some of those things. Now, another resource that could be helpful for us midlife women that either are premenopause or menopausal is Dr. Mary Claire Haber. She is a certified OBGYN, and her focus has been on supporting women that are in that premenopausal, menopausal stage of life. And she advocates for women in being able to take care of their bodies optimally so that we can have a good later half of our lives, so that we are going to be less prone to falls and different health-related concerns, and just to be able to feel better in our bodies as they age. So anyway, she's a really good resource. She's on Instagram. She has a website. I will try to link that in the show notes. But if you're looking for a resource to help support in knowing how to better take care of your body, I think she has a lot of great content. Now, the reason I wanted to do this podcast, this mental wellness podcast on food, is a couple different reasons. Obviously, it's something that I work with my clients, and I do know how important it is to be able to take care of our bodies related to the food that we taking in. And the other thing is for me personally and the impact that it's had on me. Now, a little bit about me related to food. When I was a child and a teenager, there was, some chaos in my home at different times. There was just kind of some uncertainty. And as I've mentioned before, I had parents that struggle with addictions. The way that I realized now that I coped with that was with sugar. I would consume sometimes large amounts of sugar. Actually, my sister and I would sometimes go down to the grocery store and we would buy a bunch of candy that sounded good. And then we would come back and we would go in our room and we would sit there and eat the candy. And I recognize that this could be something that kids may do anyway, but I look back on that and I feel like it was definitely an overconsumption of it. And it was probably, a way of coping with life. And then as I got, later teenage years, started being able to go out with friends to drive, and my young adult years, I found myself gravitating to a lot of fast food. Those were the foods that I craved. And again, I think I used those foods to help me in coping with painful emotions. And then later I got married and still, had those cravings for those foods. But over time started learning more about nutrition, learning more about my body and how to take care of it, it became something that was really important to me. And I've learned over time how to better take care of my body and to be aware of the things that do feel good in my body, the things that don't feel good in my body. And it really has made a big difference in my mental health. If you find that this is an area of your mental wellness that you want to improve on, I would encourage you maybe just to pick one thing. Is it that you're going to focus on getting enough protein? Or maybe it's going out and learning more about nutrition, finding resources that are credible that you can use to help you in knowing how to take better care of your body. Maybe there are resources in your community, doctors or dietitians, or something to help you get going with this aspect of your mental wellness. The biggest thing I feel like is being able to learn how to tune into the body, because your body is going to give you feedback. It's going to help you to know more of what it needs, what it doesn't need. And you can also, again, you can research and better understand that. And as you research and understand more about nutrition, then you will be able to have feedback from your body to guide you with the nutrition needs. As always, I encourage you and I cheer you on as you seek to take better care of yourself and to promote that mental wellness at this midlife stage of life. And I will see you next week on the podcast. If you're enjoying what you are learning on this podcast and would like to learn more about working with me as your coach, you can message me at midlifemomcoach@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. Midlife Mom Coach is my handle. We'll see you next time on the podcast.